Welcome to Space Week, girls. This week we will be focusing on the solar system and we will be doing a theme approach. So what I mean by that is we are going to be looking at space in a number of different subjects. So for example, geography, science, history, English and maths, and we might do some space art as well. So I hope you enjoy the week. We will be learning lots of new information and I hope we will be having lots of fun too. So enjoy. This is a page from our Window on the World geography book. So I'll just read through it and give you some little extra pieces of information. So the title of the chapter is Our Planet in Space. And you know that we live on the planet Earth. So there are 8 planets in our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Our home is the planet Earth, the 3rd planet from the Sun. Make up your own sentence to help you remember the order of the planets. So for example, my very easy method just speeds up naming. My, Mercury, very, Venus, easy, Earth, method, Mars, just, Jupiter, speeds, Saturn, up, Uranus, naming, Neptune. This is a nice little rhyme to help you remember the names and in what order the planets are located in relation to the Sun. I know when I was in school, we learned that there were 9 planets, and we'll read a little bit about that now in the next moment or two. And the rhyme that I learned was, my very educated mother just showed us 9 planets. So let's move on to the second page. There is so much about space that we have yet to discover. From 1930 until 2006, Pluto was called the 9th planet in our solar system. In 2006, scientists felt that Pluto should be called a dwarf planet and no longer our 9th planet. Some scientists think Pluto should be our 9th planet. So it's causing a little bit of debate. So when I was in school, I learned that there was 9 planets, but from 2006, we officially have 8 planets. And remember, the rhyme, my very easy method just speeds up naming. That will help you remember them. So let's look at the diagram here. And we can see that Mercury is the closest planet to the Sun and is the smallest planet in our solar system. So if you look at the diagram, Mercury is closest to the Sun. It's an airless, rocky planet and it's very hot on the side facing the Sun. But it's freezing cold on the other side and its surface is covered in craters. The next planet then is Venus. And Venus is often called our sister planet as it is the same size as Earth. It's the brightest planet in the sky at night, and it is a little smaller than Earth. And like Earth, it has a solid surface, continents and mountains. It is the hottest planet, and because of toxic gases in the atmosphere, no life could survive there. It is sometimes called the morning or evening star, as we can see it from Earth. A day on Venus lasts for 262 Earth years. The next planet we're very familiar with, Earth, our home planet, is the only planet known to have life. Our planet Earth has exactly the right conditions for life, as we know it, to survive. It is just close enough to the Sun to get light and heat. There is oxygen in the atmosphere and a solid surface to stand on. It is the only planet in our solar system with water, liquid water. The next planet is Mars, And Mars is known as the red planet. This is because of its red rock, soil and sky. Mars is smaller than Earth. It is the red planet, like I mentioned, because of its dusty red surface. Mars may once have had rivers, lakes and oceans. The atmosphere, though, is thin with traces of oxygen. Mars has 2 moons. We'll then move on to the next planet. So remember, my very easy method, just. So the next planet we're looking at is Jupiter. And you can see from the diagram that Jupiter is very, very large. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system and is circled by a set of rings. It is a giant gas ball with no solid surface. It is extremely cold with no suitable atmosphere to breathe. Did you know it also has a giant storm spot where hurricanes rage, but they never seem to end? The next planet is Saturn, and Saturn is the second largest planet and is surrounded by a set of rings. It is also a giant gas ball, and it has 62 moons, and it takes 29.5 years to go around the Sun. Saturn has rings of ice, dust and rock. There are huge hurricane storms there as well. Saturn is so light that it would float on water. Uranus is the third largest planet and has 27 moons. It is green in colour, so Uranus is several times larger than Earth, and it is a giant gas ball that spins on its side. It is also known as an ice giant, as it is so cold. It has 27 moons, like we said, and 11 invisible rings. Scientists think that there could be a huge ocean and diamonds on the surface of Uranus. And our final planet, Neptune. Neptune has a blush colour and has 13 moons. It gets its name from the Roman god of the sea because the gases in its atmosphere give it a beautiful colour. It is also a gas and ice giant. It has a great dark spot caused by a giant storm. It is a very windy planet. We will have to mention Pluto. So Pluto was discovered in 1930. It is a ball of ice and rock. It is now called a dwarf planet. It is smaller than Earth's moon, and it takes 249 years to travel around the sun. It is very cold, dark, and it was named after the Roman god of the underworld, Pluto. So here we're going to discuss the Earth a little bit further. So the Earth is a planet that orbits or goes around the sun. So the word orbit, to go around the sun. It takes the Earth 365.25 days to make a complete orbit around the sun. So how many days does it take for the Earth to complete a complete orbit around the sun? 365.25. Every 4 years, there is a leap year with 366 days to make up for the 4 quarter days. The Earth rotates on an invisible axis. Every rotation takes 24 hours to complete. The rotation causes us to have day and night, depending on which side of the Earth is facing the sun. So you might recognize that we have 24 hours in a day. and the Earth rotates every 24 hours, or it takes 24 hours to complete a rotation, and that causes us to have day and night. There are 8 planets in our solar system. Can you remember them? Let's say them together. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So I'm sure you have looked up into the sky on a lovely, bright, starry night, and you would have seen the moon. The moon orbits the Earth. So remember, the word orbits goes around. So the moon orbits the Earth. The moon goes around the Earth. The moon seems to glow because the sun's rays reflect off its surface. So it's the reflection of the sun that makes the moon glow. We are going to finish up this presentation with a video that I'm going to put on the next slide. So for day 1 of our space week, it's really an introduction to the solar system and the planets. As we go through the week, we will be looking more at the sun and the moon, and of course planet Earth and our exploration of space. So there's a nice video on the next slide, and then on the PowerPoint there will be a number of short activities for you to try out if you wish.
Our solar system. Have you ever looked up into the sky and wondered what was there? Higher than the birds, past the clouds, and farther than the moon, a whole host of fascinating objects spin in outer space. Let's imagine for a moment that we can leave the Earth behind and explore the solar system that surrounds it. We call it the solar system because everything in it is centered around the sun, and solar means something to do with the sun. The sun is a star, just like many of the stars that you can see in the night sky, just many times closer to us. Still, the sun is very, very far away from the Earth, almost 93 million miles away. That's why it looks so small, even though it's the biggest object in the solar system. In fact, the sun makes up more than 99% of the mass in the solar system. If you put all of the planets, moons, asteroids, comets, and everything else in the solar system together, they would make up less than 0.25% of it. The sun is so big that it's more than 100 times wider than the Earth, and if it were a giant jar, you could fit more than 1 million Earths into it. More than that, the sun is what holds the solar system together. Its massive gravity is what keeps the Earth and all the other planets circling around it instead of drifting off into space. The sun is also what allows us to live on Earth. Without the sun, there would be no heat. There would be no light. Plants could not grow. Water would freeze, and nothing could survive. The sun gives us heat and light because it is always burning. It is a giant ball of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium, and it burns at millions of degrees in its center. Let's leave the sun now to explore the planets. As we move away from the sun, the first planet we will encounter is Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, much smaller than Earth, and one of only 5 planets you can see from Earth using nothing but your eyes. Of course, it won't look much like a planet. It looks more like a bright star, and many nights you can see it close to the horizon near sunrise and sunset. Mercury is a lot like our moon. It's small and has a rocky surface with craters on it. It has no moon of its own and no air to breathe. You probably wouldn't enjoy a visit to Mercury, since temperatures are boiling hot in the sun and freezing cold in the shade. Something interesting about Mercury is that it is the fastest planet to go around the sun. It only takes 88 days. Next is Venus, the second planet. Some people call Venus Earth's sister because the two planets are very close in size and gravity, but they are very different on the surface. First of all, it is very hot. Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system. It's not as close to the sun as Mercury, but its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide helps it to trap the heat and stay warmer than its neighbor. It has a thick atmosphere, but it is not one you could breathe. It is mostly made of carbon dioxide, and there are clouds of sulfuric acid. Venus might not be fun to visit, but it is beautiful to look at. It is the second brightest object in the night sky. The only thing brighter is the moon. If you are looking at a sunrise or a sunset and suddenly notice what looks like a very bright star, you are probably looking at Venus. After Venus comes Earth, the third planet from the sun. Of course, you know all about Earth because that's the planet where we live. Earth is what's called a Goldilocks planet because it's not too hot and not too cold. It is just right. As far as we know, Earth is the only planet to have living things. Let's leave Earth again for a moment, though, and visit Mars, the fourth planet from the sun. Mars is known as the red planet because iron oxide, a material like rust, in the soil gives it a reddish color. Mars is smaller than Venus and the Earth, but larger than Mercury. It is cold and rocky, with a thin atmosphere made of carbon dioxide and oxygen. There is water ice on Mars. Scientists are very interested in Mars because they think that people could live there with the help of some special equipment. Rockets and probes have already been sent there to gain more information about the planet. Right now, there are 2 special robots exploring the surface of Mars, sending information back to Earth. Mars is the first planet we've visited today besides Earth to have its own moons. It has 2, although they are not big and round like our moon. Mars's moons are small and irregular. Scientists think they may be captured asteroids. Maybe they came from the big asteroid belt that is between Mars and Jupiter. An asteroid belt is a big ring of asteroids, or rocky objects, orbiting the Sun. Jupiter comes next, the 5th planet in the solar system. Jupiter is the largest planet and is something called a gas giant. It is called this because it is really big and made mostly of gases. Jupiter is so big that you would have to place 11 Earths end to end just to stretch across its middle. Jupiter is also the 3rd brightest object in the night sky. Only Venus and the Moon are brighter. You can usually find Jupiter higher in the sky than Venus, since Jupiter is away from the Sun and not towards it. Jupiter has at least 67 moons that circle around it, but 55 of them are very small, only about as big as a mountain or smaller. Some of its moons are very large, and at least 2 of them are about the same size as the planet Mercury. One of its moons is the largest moon in the solar system. Some of these large moons can be seen from Earth in your backyard with a telescope. People cannot land on Jupiter because it is made of gas. There is no ground to land on. Even if there was somewhere to land, Jupiter is covered by terrible storms, much stronger than even the strongest storms on Earth. One storm that we know about can be seen from Earth. We call it the Great Red Spot because that's what it looks like, and it has been going on for at least 200 years. After Jupiter comes Saturn, another gas giant. Saturn is famous for its beautiful rings. Although they look solid from a distance, the rings are actually made from many, many small ice particles, as well as rocks and dust. Saturn also has more than 60 moons orbiting around it, some as large as the planet Mercury, and many smaller. Something interesting about Saturn is that even though it is very large, it is not very dense. That means that if you could find a bathtub large enough to put Saturn in, it would float instead of sink. Saturn is the farthest planet that can be seen from Earth without the help of a telescope. After Saturn comes Uranus, the 7th planet from the Sun. Uranus is another gas giant, but it is much smaller than Saturn and Jupiter. Unlike any other planet in the solar system, it is tilted so much that it actually spins sideways. Uranus has rings around it, although they are much smaller than Saturn's, and 27 known moons. Uranus is covered in blue clouds made of methane, which give it its lovely color. Very similar to Uranus is Neptune, the 8th planet from the Sun. Neptune is another gas giant, and like Uranus, it has methane in its atmosphere, so it also looks blue. Neptune is a darker blue than Uranus, and scientists aren't sure why. Neptune has a few thin rings and 14 moons that we know about. Because Neptune is so far out in space, it takes it a very, very long time to go around the Sun. Remember Mercury, that only takes 88 days to go once around the Sun? Poor Neptune takes over 164 years to finish an orbit around the Sun. The last time that Neptune was in the same place it is now was before the American Civil War, before computers, phones, airplanes, or cars had been invented. Neptune has the longest orbit of any planet in the solar system. Now you may think that I've forgotten someone. Pluto. Pluto was discovered in 1930 and was listed as the 9th planet in the solar system. As it was studied longer, scientists realized how small it is. It is much smaller than any other planet in the solar system, and even smaller than many other moons. Plus, people started to discover other small, rocky planet-like objects in space near Pluto. Some of them were even bigger than Pluto. In 2006, after 76 years being listed as a planet, Pluto was declared a dwarf planet to show that it was something that was like a planet but much smaller. There are at least 6 dwarf planets in the solar system, and possibly many, many more. That leaves us with 8 official planets in our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. I hope you enjoyed exploring the solar system with me today. Goodbye till next time.